Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Cassinelli and I promised you that we would be answering your questions, and that's exactly what we do. Plus, we talk about a bunch of new stuff from the Google Assistant, some things you should change on your Apple Watch, and round things out with our picks of the week. It's all that and more coming up next on Smart Tech Today. Smart Tech Today is brought to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? Well, LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Casper. From award-winning mattresses to pillows, sheets, and duvets, Casper transforms the way we sleep one snooze at a time. Go to casper.com/STT and use code STT for $100 off select mattresses. And by Mint Mobile. Get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $30 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free. Just head to mintmobile.com/STT. And by MySudo. Life is better without spam, ads based on activity, hacked info, or the risk of identity theft. Take back control of your privacy with MySudo. Download the MySudo app today from the App Store or Google Play. Go to mysudo.com/twit to learn more. Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, the dynamic, and the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am Mikah Sargent.
And I am Matthew Cassinelli. Hello, Mikah.
Hello, Matthew Cassinelli. Another day, another dollar, another hey, another holler.
Yes.
All of those things. We have kind of a packed show because we asked for your questions and we sure did get them. So we're just going to jump right into things. Up first is a feature that may sound familiar to those of you who use watchOS, that is the operating system on the Apple Watch. Android has a new sound notification feature that alerts you to critical sounds around you. So you can think of things like water running, or a baby crying, or someone knocking on the door, or a fire alarm. These features, of course, are particularly helpful for those who have low or no hearing, but they can be helpful if you are, up to something else and you can't quite hear what's going on out in the world. And so it can notify you of these different things. And it's kind of nice that it's now on Wear OS, Google's wearable operating system, as well as on watchOS.
Yeah, this is a nice feature to kind of see come to the two major operating systems this year and give people the kind of smarts that you would expect from a smartphone. Like, it is kind of interesting that we hadn't gotten something like this sooner, but it also, I guess, with the whole privacy angle and things like that, it does make sense. These are use machine learning and work offline and things like that. So that's makes me a little bit more confident about having my phone intentionally listen to me. But I think that's always one of the things that with this type of stuff is when you're choosing to do it, that's a whole different story than when it does it when you have no idea or against your will. So it's like, I want to use this technology for good, not just for creeping on people, but or companies creeping on us at least. I am curious if this works, if this disables other assistant features, because that is one of the downsides of sound recognition on iOS, is that it turns off the trigger phrase, I'll say. I was close there. But I got a whole set of shortcuts for sound recognition too, if you are on iOS. So this is kind of cool to see come to both platforms. And it seems like it's one of those things that's cool, but not like super sexy. So I feel like people won't know that it exists. And
right.
Like a couple of years from now, it'll just be something that everybody uses, though. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. The other thing, we kind of talked about this a little bit before with the Google Pixel event, was the upcoming introduction of Google Assistant features that would tie the Assistant in better with third-party apps. You can think of this like Siri Intents, which is the ability to actually dig into an app and have it do different things based on what you tell Siri to do. The same thing applies to the Google Assistant. So you can use your voice to control third-party apps, which, as the BGR article kind of points out, an example would be, hey, dear friend, send a message to Rachel on Discord, or hey, dear friend, check my accounts on Mint, or hey, dear friend, send a snap with the cartoon lens. So all of these third-party apps getting integration with the Google Assistant, I think folks are going to love that. And for folks who use their voice as a way to navigate their mobile operating systems, I think they're going to love that. I'm still stuck in the past. I'm still very much a control freak, and I don't like to use my voice for doing most of the things, but I see a lot of people who do, and I know that it's a thing. And so I'm glad that, there's getting to be some parity there, because as a whole, it pushes everything forward in this sort of voice-based operating system ecosystem, if you will.
Yeah, well, you're definitely talking to one of the people who uses the voice stuff, because I'm all about it. But it is hard to just remember and integrate. So I think these where you can just say the thing with the app is really nice. Like, that does beat out shortcuts a lot of times where you have to pre-program the thing and have it all set up ahead of time. And that's one of the areas where it'll be interesting to see if Android's tendency to have that openness already will benefit them quicker than, honestly, like, people haven't adopted Siri or shortcut stuff as fast as the features have been available. So I'm curious if there's other hangups in the developer ecosystem for that type of thing. Whereas, like, the Android share sheet has always been open for years. And if that stuff can start to play into this pretty easily, Google can kind of catch up to some of the stuff that Shortcuts is doing too. And even quite literally, Google has shortcut phrases now for this stuff. So if you don't want to say, tighten my shoes with Nike Adapt, they say you can have a custom phrase that just says lace it or something like that, and it'll do it for you. So I'm curious to see if this is a step into the realm of multi-step shortcuts where you can customize things and have it do a lot more advanced functionality. I mean, it is a first step in that direction. So that's pretty cool. And I remember when we first saw this teased from the, I think 9 to 5 and 9 to 5 Google was spotting this earlier. It is like shortcuts is a generic term now, which is pretty cool. So that's nice for like people now know. Yeah. Then Google used to have the term shortcuts, moved away from it and then to routines. And I think is coming back because routines are a pretty specific, just the word itself emphasizes you're like doing it at a repeated time versus just wanting a quicker way to do something. So cool.
Speaking of routines, I love this new feature. So Google Assistant routines are already a way to say, hey, I'm leaving for work, except we don't do that anymore mostly. But hey, I'm leaving for work, and then a bunch of things happen in your house. It says goodbye, and it tells you the weather, and it tells you the traffic report, and then it turns off the lights and all that kind of stuff. But there's a new thing that is coming to the Google Assistant called a workday routine. And what this does is, instead of just being a one-stop shop for a bunch of actions all at once, it actually does a routine. It does a schedule. So you can set it up so that on, every day, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., I want my Google Assistant to tell me it's time to stand up and stretch. And then at 2 p.m., it says, you might want to go out for a walk right quick. And then at 3, it reminds you to grab a glass of water. And at 4:45, it says, hey, it's time to wrap things up. And what's cool is you can also have it tell you the time. So I think about this. This is a big one for me. I have an alarm set for some of because I have, plenty of calendar notifications and things like that. But what I find myself doing, because of the way that my brain works, is I know that at X time I have a meeting, and between now and when that meeting is, my brain is constantly going, oh, is it almost time for that meeting? Is it almost time for that meeting? Is it almost time for that meeting? And so I end up looking at the clock a lot and then checking to make sure that the meeting hasn't changed time, and then looking at the clock. And so what I ended up doing was setting an alarm that is 15 minutes before the meeting every Tuesday. And then that way, my brain doesn't have to focus on it. I know I won't be late because I'll have that alarm as my way of going, okay, now's the time to get ready. But this could, throughout the day, go, hey, just wanted to let you know it's 2:15 and you have a meeting at 3, which would be very helpful. There's also some other changes to this. So you can schedule things faster. You can use your voice to create an event. You can ask what's on the calendar, when your next meeting is. And these things are supposed to happen a lot faster than they did before. But one of the things I like with this is, and I'll just read this verbatim. Your Google Assistant can also help you remember random or important pieces of information. Tell it what you need to know. Things like, hey, friend, remember that Sam's 5-year work anniversary is next Wednesday. Or, hey, friend, remember that the home office Wi-Fi password is blank. Maybe don't do that one. But I like that it can remember random things as well. So then you could say, now, when is that anniversary again? And be able to get to it.
This is cool. I definitely, especially with the Nest Home Hub, I don't even remember what it's called anymore. Nest Hub. Just having that little display on my desk that's the type of thing that I've wanted. And I always try to schedule these things into my calendar. And then I have a over cascading array of like, here's exactly when I should eat lunch and things like that, that kind of feels a little unnecessary. So I'm actually interested in trying this because I remember when we talked about the school day reminders that they added for kids, I was like, I need this as an adult. So it's good that they're adding this in a way that doesn't make me feel like a child or something like that. Also, it's like self-care, very 2020.
Absolutely. Google also announced a new hardware product, the Nest Smart Thermostat. Actually, it's just called the Nest Thermostat. It already had the Nest Learning Thermostat and the Nest Thermostat E, which were an expensive thermostat and a less expensive thermostat. This is now an even less expensive thermostat than that. So $40 less than the E, $120 less than the Nest Learning Thermostat. And they've basically taken out the moving parts. So instead of that trademarked practically dial that the Nest thermostats have had up to this point, it's just a touch-sensitive panel on the side. And that is being used to control, temperature and move throughout the menus. That, of course, is going to bring the price down because you don't have those little gears and things moving inside of it. And apparently this features the Soli technology. That's that sort of radar technology that was in older versions of the Pixel phone, so that it can tell, hey, I'm standing in front of the thermostat, or I could see that you're standing in front of the thermostat and turn it on to be available. So the idea there is that it's hidden, and it's just this sort of mirrored look, this little mirrored thing on your wall, a bit of artwork per se, until you get close enough, at which point the display turns on and it can let you make adjustments to it. When you shared that Nest, I guess Google's Nest, Alphabet's Google's Nest had come out with a new thermostat. You had a little bit of a concern. And so what's sort of the issue here with this new Nest thermostat?
Well, you did manage to talk me down slightly before the show from just launching into a whole rant, but I was just very surprised that one of the big things that they're doing away with is the smart learning features of Nest, because to me, that was always the reason to buy this product. Like, it also looks cool, and they have maintained that. Like, I think they're pretty proud of the big thing with the Soli is that there's just no motion sensor hole in it. So you're not seeing a little dot it's like perfectly clear or whatever. So
right.
That is,
there's no
neat.
Broken,
exactly.
There's no broken eye lines on the surface.
But to me, it just seems like this is their new focus. Like, even in the Verge article, they're linking to the old or the Nest Learning thermostat and stuff like that, but those haven't been updated in a long time. So this seems like this is the one they want you to buy, and it no longer does the thing that I thought was the point of the Nest. I mean, you were mentioning that a lot of times it's smart learning can just overcompensate, and it doesn't make it's not smart enough. And generally you just want to schedule or to be able to, like, you're like, it's still a smart thermostat, but also, I don't know. I was just like, what? Like, Google just took Nest, wiped it out for years, didn't do anything with it, and then is now bringing it back without the Nest part, and is just kind of using the brand and the style, which is fine, I guess. But it being a lot more affordable, I think it makes all the difference, because, like, our next article is about a $50 thermostat. So
yeah, the colors match with the new. No, that's okay. I was just, I mean, I agree with you. The colors match with the new Nest Audio smart speaker, so it's kind of a, a one-in-one kind of thing there. Yeah, it's aesthetic AF. But yeah, I used to do smart home reviews and write-ups and all that kind of stuff for iMore, and in hearing folks talk about the Nest thermostat, one of their main complaints was that they kind of were just always miserable, because it would not cool enough in summer, and it would not heat enough in winter in places where there are actual seasons. And so it would try to be smart to a point where, it didn't get cold enough, or it didn't get warm enough, which you would actually be comfortable with. But then the people would say, but I don't want to change it because I'm supposed to be trying to be green. And this is, it shows that passive aggressive leaf on it. And you're like, oh no, I don't want to change it from the leaf. Am I going to kill the leaf? Am I a bad person? And so you just kind of end up being miserable and have this, it might as well have a plexiglass barrier over the thermostat, like you are in school or something.
Just your dad slapping them.
Yeah, exactly. Dad saying, don't touch the thermostat. You know it goes up 5 cents every time you get close to it. Don't even breathe. And exactly.
Somebody touched the thermostat from the other room. Like,
the weather has changed. The temperature has changed in this house.
I feel a disturbance.
They call you from work. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, I guess you really can't mess with thermostats anymore, because
with the smart, they can call you from work and change it.
Yeah,
just
Guardians
change it back.
will be aware of it. I'm going to have to set up a little notification so I know if Henry or Mizzy mess with the thermostat. No, I'm kidding. So I think that where Nest, I mean, because of that tech that they've had so far, it was very expensive to own the product. And I think if I'm looking at this from the outside looking in, I think about this. They say, let's try to make this thing less expensive. And how do we go about doing that? Well, we take away a lot of the moving parts. Good. And then what if we differentiate it even more? Because I have a feeling that the Nest Thermostat E, the one in the middle, has done quite well for them, not only because it's done quite well for them from people just going out and buying it, but because of the number of utilities companies who give the Nest Thermostat E as a sort of rebate program. I know several family members who have Nest Thermostat E's that were installed by their utilities programs, utility companies, and they ended up, getting it for free and then also getting a discount or something like that. So does Google want to cannibalize the Nest Thermostat E? How do they set that middle ground one apart from the new one that they've come out with that has newer technology with the Soli, but is supposed to be a less expensive one? And I think that part of that is let's strip out the learning stuff. I don't know how much of the processor technology is needed to do the learning stuff. Or if it's really just a matter of saying we've got to differentiate, so we're taking it out. But I'm fine with that, because then you've got one that doesn't guilt you for wanting to be cool in the summer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be mad. I need it cold in the summer and I need it cold in the winter. I just like to be cold all the time, okay? Anyway,
I mean, I definitely get that. Like, it's worth it for me to pay for it in the winter because it's going to be cold and I'm going to be miserable, especially this year. But I mean, I think one of the answers is that the Nest E is no longer for sale, but you can get it through those type of retailer or like deal things. So I think installers will still be able to get these, but generally they want you to buy the new one. So it's just kind of interesting that it's not more, I don't know. I think it seems like a software feature that they took away. So that's why I was kind of like, why not just not prioritize it and still enable people to do it? But I guess maybe it just didn't work out the way that they were planning. So yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, it still looks nice. Like, I think that's going to be interesting is to see this is kind of like the next generation of smart thermostats seems to be. We're in that realm now. So should we talk about Wises? Because that's the next detail.
Because Wise is kind of, I think is very wise. It's the idea is, hey, let's be everything that is smart home, and let's do it at a cost-effective price, and let's just run the gamut. Let's just be everything that somebody who's buying smart home stuff needs it to be. And the latest product is a thermostat.
Yes, a $50 one to boot. It's not out yet, but it will be shipping in December. But maybe this is timed nicely around. It is Amazon Prime Day this week and things like that. So if you're going to be making smart home decisions for this coming year and things like that, now is probably around the time to at least be aware to check out for deals and things like that. That is something, just as an aside, like the whole chip angle is a thing to consider that I was curious if Wise is playing in this realm where the P-choip, to be more clear for our listeners, just because that stuff that is going to be coming sometime soon in the next few years. Even, I guess, now I'm thinking about it, the cheaper Nest is probably a time to buy cheaper smart home products with the intent of you're probably going to be replacing this in a few years, because even if you buy the more expensive ones, you still might want to replace it in a few years to take advantage of the new protocols that are going to just make things. I mean, I don't know if you'll have to replace, but that'll be the next realm time to like really invest in good stuff. So getting a $50 smart thermostat to get you through the next few years might make sense. But Wise's thing is definitely one of the angles is it's not really made for apartment dwellers. It's got to be powered and things like that. So, or hardwired. So can't really do that if you don't own the home. But for homeowners, Wise stuff is seems like a pretty solid deal. There's the feels like thing, so it can account for humidity and like things like that, or if sun is on the thermostat and all those features.
It's going to have a room sensor coming out later, which is very good. And then they'll eventually add smart tech to it, smart learning algorithms to it as well. So what I like about Wyze is that they are very upfront with their product roadmaps, and that they kind of iterate in public, and they will, you can see kind of that they have an investment in the life of the product, given that they have plans to do, to make additions and make improvements as time goes on. And I think that is one of the things that I really like about Wyze, because one typically would say you get what you pay for. And what I have seen with companies where things cost less, the support isn't there. After a period of time, the products go away after a period of time, or the online portions of the products go away after a period of time. And Wyze sort of skirts all of that, goes against all of that. And I think that's awesome. I'm glad that Wyze continues to rock.
That's a really good point, especially because I think they're hitting the right mix of smart and price. And I think a lot of other companies are still in the realm where they're like, oh, we can charge a lot for this because it's smart. And I think it's kind of like, it's 2020. People are smart enough to recognize that you're charging too much for a product that doesn't give you as much as the cost. So getting that mix a little bit better and then providing more value over time. It almost sounds like, now I'm thinking about it, like the whole video game ecosystem where you have to like do in-app, or even apps as like in-app purchases and subscription type things, as opposed to paid upfront sort of thing. So it's a interesting time for smart thermostats, it seems.
It absolutely is. And folks, it is now time to take a little break so that we can take a nap. And I'm vamping because I realize now that I don't have the link pulled up. But just listen to the sound of my voice and breathe and think about taking the most restful night of sleep, because this episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Casper. We've all heard of Casper. Don't fool me. I know you know about Casper, the sleep company with outrageously comfortable products at not so outrageous prices. From award-winning mattresses to pillows, sheets, and duvets, Casper transforms the way we sleep one snooze at a time. It has bedding, bed frames, and even a dog bed. Casper has everything you need to build the bed of your dreams. Every Casper mattress is designed with a system to react and adapt to your body all night long. Inside, precisely 1,501 perforations create a cooling system so effective you won't be awake to notice. Only Casper mattresses are made with 86 supportive gel pods to align your spine and eliminate aches and pains. Altogether, it's the cooling, supportive comfort you need for the most refreshed feeling come morning. With more than 20,000 reviews and an average of 4.8 stars across Casper, Amazon, and Google, Casper is becoming the internet's favorite mattress. And it's been my favorite mattress for quite a long time. I love my Casper mattress, my Casper sheets, my Casper bed frame, my Casper box springs, my Casper pillows. I love it all because Casper has given me the best night of sleep I could ever ask for. And I'm so happy that this company is doing what it's doing. Now, one of the things that people kind of ask is, all right, so I'm going to buy a mattress online and then I'm going to have it. And then what if I don't want to, like, what if I don't like it? What do I do? Well, I don't think that will happen. But if it does, this is the good thing. You can be sure of your purchase with Casper's 100-night risk-free Sleep On It trial. Casper also offers free shipping and painless returns to the U.S. and Canada. And now with 0% APR financing options, it's even easier to try a Casper mattress. You just go to casper.com/STT and use the code STT for $100 off select mattresses. That's code STT for $100 off select mattresses. Terms and conditions apply. See casper.com/terms. Our thanks to Casper for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today and for sponsoring my nights of sleep. We do appreciate you, Casper. All righty. CNET has the guide for anyone who has an Apple Watch. It says, you must change these 6 settings right now. No, it's a little bit of a for people who are new to the Apple Watch. It's kind of a little bit of a PSA saying, hey, you don't have to keep the default settings. And here are the things that you can do to not keep those default settings. Here are the things that maybe you want to make a change to. And what's funny is that in reading through this piece, so much of it is what my partner, who I recently gave him an Apple Watch for his birthday, and so much of what's on here are his complaints about the Apple Watch. So anyone else new to the Apple Watch family, this guide kind of walks you through some of those. I know we don't want to give away all of the things, but
sure.
Was there anything on here that for you stood out?
I definitely liked, I don't think I fully realized that you could change your stand goals, and you can adjust that. I'm not sure when that was added, but
instead of 12, you can do less?
Yeah, because I think the major thing is if you're especially with the charging now situation, just depending on when you charge your device, it could just mean you kind of don't hit it. I think another good one is Control Center. And I thought this was interesting because it is something that I've almost heard nobody talking about. It's not exactly what's your Control Center layout on your Apple Watch? But I'm sure some nerd out there was like, I want to know. So, you can rearrange them and kind of create your own layouts. And I definitely did this just because I don't find having the water lock thing and certain features like that available very useful, or the AirPlay stuff. You can't actually AirPlay from the watch most of the time. So that kind of bugs me. But the thing that he didn't mention in this article that I wanted to add is the way to show Control Center from anywhere. Do you know about this? In addition to notifications, is that I'll put it up on this video just briefly. Oh gosh, Siri's answering me. But for anybody listening, whenever you're in an app, as long as you hold down on the bottom of the screen for a second, then Control Center will slide up. I guess you can't really see it on here, but it basically means you're actually able to get to those settings or notifications from within any app. You just kind of have to hold on it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And then bonus tip. If an Apple Watch notification has a round icon, that means that the app is installed on the Apple Watch. And if you tap on that icon, it will open into the app. If it has a square icon, that means that the app is an iPhone app just sending you a notification, and you won't be able to tap on it. But that's something that I've actually known for years, which is pretty weird. So you can actually jump right into those apps, which is pretty convenient. It's otherwise it's really hard to get into your Apple Watch apps. So that's something that's always been there and just completely unobvious. I don't know why you would figure that out, but so definitely check out the CNET article for the other ideas too.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to check that out. We'll include, of course, a link in the show notes. Tell me about PushCut. What's PushCut doing?
Yes. I saw this thread earlier today, and I just wanted to share it because it's awesome ideas for smart tech. It started out with Rosemary Orchard is using PushCut to basically let her know when her tumble dryer is finished. So she has a little sensor in her dryer. It's called on it, Aquara. I don't know how to say AQARA. Aquara, but without the U.
I don't
vibration
know.
Sensor, but basically you can use HomeKit devices like this that have some sort of sensor detection, and if you can basically determine, okay, if there's no data coming in, do this. If there is data, do something else. And you can take that HomeKit automation, convert it into a shortcut as a HomeKit automation, which is a limited way that you can basically do multi-step HomeKit automations. And in there are actions for things like get contents of URL that you can do with shortcuts. So you can basically have your HomeKit sensor once it determines, okay, there's no more vibrations, it can send a web request out to the service pushcut, which then sends you a notification and is like, your dryer's finished running, which is awesome. But then, of course, the guy who makes pushcut was like, challenge accepted. I already beat you. He's like, I have a Raspberry Pi that analyzes the power consumption and then basically sends a notification on the television if the laundry is done, which is pretty awesome too. And I was like, oh, I'm about to make one of those. And even in the replies, then Matt Galligan is talking about, you can probably do this with the Eve energy sensor, which I'm pretty sure I have and haven't tried yet. So I was kind of like, ooh, this is awesome stuff, because I have NFC tags on my dryer where I can just set a timer, but I pretty much always forget. And then I just have to go do it again later. So actually knowing that it's like going off when it's done is nice.
Wow.
So,
interesting.
Cool stuff. Yeah. If you want to see the whole Raspberry Pi code, he put it in the tweet that's in the show notes as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Another thing, this is from the blog A Whole Lot of Nothing, is a way to, one way to make Wi-Fi connection painless. And what's interesting is that I always intend to do this in some way, be it NFC, QR, or through the use of the built-in features that iOS has. And then I always forget that those features are there, or I forget where I put the QR code or whatever. And so then I end up not being able to do it for my guests. But A Whole Lot of Nothing has a little write-up about how he is trying to make it easier for folks, I guess, if you ever have guests in your home ever again.
This is from Matt Howie, who works at Slack, and I think he did I think he was Meta Filter, or he was like a major internet figure, but he's also, I've joked with him on Twitter that he's my smart home spirit animal, because he does tons of cool projects like this. He did a NFC one that we talked about last year, but he turned the QR code into a printed piece of wood with he said his friend has a Glowforge where they basically laser engraved the QR code for his Wi-Fi into a piece of wood and then put the information on there and stuck it above their wall switch near the door, where he says they have like a drink cart. So if this was also written, I'll say in 2019. So gotta qualify. It's like when he has parties in the before times.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I see now.
I also saw this because I think I did a whole project. It was almost like 2 years ago now, where I built a shortcut that does the same kind of thing. So if you do want to have that QR code method, Mikah, there's a shortcut that can do it for you and just pop up on your phone, and then the person just scans your phone real quick. But again, you gotta remember it. So,
one of these days I'll remember to do that. Well, let's quickly hit IFTTT. So we had been meaning to talk about this for a while and just had to keep putting it off because there's a lot to talk about. But IFTTT introduced Pro subscriptions to its service. And originally it had come out with people could test IFTTT Pro by paying a monthly subscriber fee. I think it was $2.99, $5.99, and $9.99 or something like that. There was, I think, 3 different prices. And here's how it went. People who wanted to try it out could do it at $1.99 per month or more. And then the official price, whenever it launched, was going to be $9.99 per month. But what ended up happening was people said, you know what, I think I kind of would like to be able to, since we're being early adopters here and giving you money, maybe I could lock in that price. And so IFTTT said, you know what, yes, let's do that. So if you got in on the ground floor, got in early and subscribed, then you could lock in your price for the monthly subscription.
I
have one complaint. I
just signed up that way, so.
So as soon as I got the email letting me know that IFTTT Pro was going to be coming out soon, I wanted to try it out, obviously. And so I hopped on, and I think I did like $4.99. I didn't feel good about only doing $1.99, so I did $4.99. And so that was supposed to be, my first year's price or something like that. But then I got a notification that said, "Hey, we heard you. We would love to update, or we understand that you want to do a lock-in. And so if you go in before October 7th and subscribe, then you can lock in your price for all of time." So I went online, and there was an error on my account. And it said, contact support in order to correct this error. So I contacted support and said, "Hey, I want to be able to lock in a price and, do this thing before it expires." And the first person said everything was fine. So they kind of ignored what I was saying because they were like, "Oh, no, your account looks fine, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Did you look at the screenshot I sent you where it literally shows contact support? There's an error on your account." I didn't say that, though. I didn't say that. I said, or I reached back out and tried again. The second person was like, "Oh, okay." They saw the notification. The screenshot. And they said that they would be working on it and they would get back to me. A couple of days passed, hadn't heard back. So I responded again and said, "Hey, just wanted to follow up. October 7th is coming up and I want to be able to lock in a price." And they said, "Oh yeah, we saw this. We're going to fix it." I logged in later and it was still not fixed.
Wow.
October 7th comes and I log in and everything's suddenly working and the price that I chose was locked in. So from the outside looking in, it seems as though the company wanted anyone who had signed up for the first year at a given price to not be able to change it when they decided to do a grandfathered in lock-in price.
Yeah.
But the way that they communicated that was not at all, and instead said that I just had an error on my account. That I do not like, and that made me unhappy because that felt dishonest. But that said, I am still a IFTTT Pro subscriber because I am trying to experiment with some of these different automations and see how they can be improved upon. But one of the big things that is changing is that people who are on the free plan can do up to, is it 3 automations? 3 applets, basically?
Yeah. Is it creating, though? That was kind of what they've made it confusing.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, because you can add them from other people, but just the ability to be a creator is limited, which is interesting. I feel like that just their whole vibe has always been free, so that doesn't sound like a very strong upsell to me. That sounds like I'll just stop and not use it after I make 3 for a casual person, I'd say. I also just signed up and was still able to lock in a cheaper price. So
nice.
That's funny.
They must have extended that.
Yeah, I mean, I did see we got some tweets saying, like, what do you guys think? Because people are definitely not super happy. This seems like a move that they should have made about 5 years ago, because they've been around. IFTTT was kind of like one of the first smart pipelines that you could connect things together, and like my first exposure to automation, I'd say. And so it's disappointing that they didn't like pursue a monetization strategy sooner. I mean, maybe that was kind of their goal, I guess, but they've already gone through one controversy where they just started to charge all of these companies for the pipes instead of making, I think it was they're fairly free or something like that. So they've now like had one strike from the developer community and their users, which isn't the most comforting, like in the long term, because I could see if they do other weird things in the future, it'll kind of be like, I'm done with this, then that. And I guess my first reaction too was, if you're going to pay for it, pay for Zapier and go up to something that has more features. And I mean, I honestly, I had so much trouble for like the last 4 years figuring out how to create an applet in their apps. Like they buried it very weirdly.
They've changed the process and it is not as good.
It's like it should have gotten better over time. And it seemed, I mean, they expanded to, I would assume if I want to tap into something, you can through IFSys than that. And I brought this up because it'll be part of the feedback of there's definitely ways, especially with shortcuts, that you can still use this, but it's not always perfect. And it just kind of, it feels like a lot of hoops to jump through sometimes to get this working. And I personally I haven't really, for somebody who's so into automation, I've never gotten a ton of value out of this, if this, then that. So. Yeah,
I'm hoping that the introduction of this new ability where you can do all the different kinds will make a difference. But I just haven't, there's so many different things that I have been working on that I have not had the chance to sit down with it and really give it a go. But it was kind of let me get in on this now. And if I want to cancel later, I will. Let's take a quick break before we come back with the questions you have asked. Yay. All right. This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Mint Mobile. Ah, that's right. It's the Fox. Breaking up with your old wireless provider just got a whole lot easier thanks to Mint Mobile. In fact, Mint Mobile was the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, and now Mint Mobile is introducing its unlimited data plan for just $30 a month. Just take a second there. Let that sink in. Think about that. Unlimited data, $30 a month. Now look at your cellular plan and the bill, and then look at me, and look back at the bill, and then look at me, and then shake your head in wonder that you can pay just $30 a month for unlimited data. That's got to be so much less than what you're paying right now. I know it is, because it's so much less than what my cellular service charges for unlimited data. How much is your soon-to-be wireless provider charging you? Mint Mobile, I don't know how they do it, but it's awesome because that's so much less. And in fact, I have a Mint Mobile SIM in my iPad. And first of all, it works in a lot of places where my phone does not work. That's on one of the big carriers. And I love that it actually works on the iPad and like I said, in places where everything else doesn't work. And for $30 a month, and you get unlimited data. I mean, you can stream videos, whatever you want. For people that hate their phone bill and are ready to cut ties with big wireless, Mint Mobile offers its premium unlimited plan for just $30 a month. By going online, here's that answer to my question where I said, how do they do it? Well, by going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes those savings on to you. Got it. All plans, all of them, not just the unlimited one, come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Got a secret for you. It's T-Mobile. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. And if you're not 100% satisfied, Mint Mobile has you covered with its 7-day money-back guarantee. Break up with big wireless and switch to Mint Mobile's premium unlimited data plan for $30 a month. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $30 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/STT. That's mintmobile.com/STT. Cut your unlimited wireless bill to $30 a month at mintmobile.com/STT. Thanks so much, Mint Mobile. You just rock. I adore you. All right. We asked for your questions. You asked for our answers. And now it is time. We have them for you. First question comes from Judy. Judy says, can you talk about how to keep Ring security cameras secure from hackers? Well, Judy, we kind of want to talk about this as a more generalized bit of advice for security protections, because regardless of your security camera, there are some things that you can do to protect yourself. And it all starts with getting away from using any of the default settings for logins and for making adjustments to your Wi-Fi and things like that. So, Judy, the good thing about many of these modern security platforms is that they do have a lot of protections baked into them, but you have to take advantage of them. And while they may have some protections baked in, you are still connecting to the internet through something that traditionally has favored convenience over security, and that is the router. I mean, Wi-Fi protected setup, anybody? Come on. So with that, the first thing that I'm going to recommend to you, Judy, is that you make sure that your Wi-Fi password is not something super simple, super easy, password 1234 or anything like that. You also want to make sure that you are using a more modern password technology, which would be what WPA2, I think is, or we're getting the WPA3, but WPA2 is the current one. So you would look in your router settings and make sure that of the options that are available for password and for security, that you have WPA2 at the very least. And then from there, you want to make sure that your Ring account is also not using a password that you use anywhere else. And I will say this, I can't convince everyone that they shouldn't have the same password on everything that they have. People still choose to use the same or similar passwords across different sites. But if I can implore you, there are certain places, if you're going to have the same or similar passwords in some places, I know I can't convince you otherwise, but what I can try to do is convince you to prioritize some of the things that you have so that those passwords are made different from your other accounts. So your email should be a different password from anything else, the email that you use for all of your accounts. Your bank should be a different password from anything else you use. And the devices that you use to look into your own home or around your home should also have passwords that are different from anything else that you use. I wish I could just say everything that you have should have different passwords from anything else that you use, but there are just some categories that that I think are the most important. Yep. So once you have your Wi-Fi security in place and you have account security in place, make sure that you're using two-factor authentication anywhere it's made available. And then at that point, always be suspicious of emails related to those security cameras. If you get an email from Ring that says, we noticed a login on your account, or we need you to log in again, or we need you to re-authenticate, or anything like that. One of the security tips that I've seen that ended up, I think is just a great security tip, is never use an email link related to these kinds of messages, and instead go to the site itself and log in and make corrections if you feel that corrections need to be made. So an example of that would be Instagram emails me and says, we detected a login from here. Click this link to reset your password. Don't click that link. Instead, go to Instagram and change your password there. After you can confirm or not confirm whether it was a phishing attempt. But anytime that happens, I just go ahead and change my password anyway, because I just want to be 100% sure. But don't use that link, because you could be sending your password to somebody that is going to use it for the wrong things. Do you have any other advice, Matthew, for sort of securing your security cameras?
Yeah, I still don't have a set yet. So I think those sound like the best tips, especially the password thing is like the fundamental one that is the wall that breaks down, and then people without the good practices there can get more hacked than they would otherwise, even if they otherwise have good security practices. So I think that's probably the best tips there.
Yeah. Our next question comes from John. John writes, what do you guys recommend for a smart thermostat? Okay, I'll say it. Ecobee smart thermostat, hands down, is to this day still the smart thermostat that I recommend. There's a review over on iMore that has been sort of updated over time. That is actually my photo that I took of my Ecobee smart thermostat there as the hero image. A long time ago, I wrote the sort of updated review of the Ecobee smart thermostat, and even to this day, the editor that they have now working on HomeKit and smart home stuff at iMore still recommends the Ecobee. The Nest thermostat is a gorgeous thermostat that works well, and if you want to constantly be shamed for not running your energies in certain ways, then by all means go that route. It is a pretty piece of hardware, and I think that hardware-wise, it is superior. And I just mean in terms of, knob turning and things like that. I think that is superior to the Ecobee. But the Ecobee smart thermostat has the ability to, through the use of the room sensors that they include in the box, you can put those around your home, and it uses all of that information to help determine the current temperature in your home on an average, and then try to get the temperature cooled to what you're asking the thermostat itself to cool to. So it's very helpful in making sure that you don't have cold spots or hot spots in your home, and that overall the house feels like an ambient 72 or what have you, and not just it's 72 next to the thermostat, but upstairs in the bedroom it's 78 because we didn't run the AC long enough. Ecobee also continues to come out with new peripheral technology that work with the Ecobee smart thermostat. And so there's a new camera that they've come out with, and new smart sensors that are updated, and it works with ALEXA. In fact, the one that I have has ALEXA built in, and a speaker and beamforming microphones and all that stuff.
Wow.
And Ecobee also makes smart lights that have ALEXA built in, and all of that stuff just works together very well to make for a home that is cooled or heated as you want, based on what room you're in and whether you're home or you're not. And so I think that even though it is not as pretty as the Nest thermostat, I have gotten so much value out of the Ecobee and appreciate the features that it has. So yeah, I've got to go with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It does seem, we were kind of saying about the Nest thing too, is that they just kind of moved away from that higher end of the market, that if you want the full smart thermostat integrated system, it seems like this is the way to go. Nest is kind of in the middle, and for the, I don't want to say budget, because that's doing Wise a disservice, but for the homeowners that want to maybe test this out and not invest in this giant system, maybe Wise is a good way to get in there too, because it's only $50. So it does seem like this has pretty clear, depending on what you're going for, there's one product at that point. And tying it into your whole home system too, probably depends on what you're using, but the Starling Home Hub or Hoobs might be a way to integrate this stuff deeper if it doesn't natively support that.
All righty. The next question comes from Matthew, and that's not Matthew Cassinelli, but a different Matthew, who writes, I have a full house of Hue lights. I was an early adopter, so I've stuck with the ecosystem that I already sunk a bunch of money into. Just the base Hue settings, I don't see how to do this. Is there any idea on outside automation or on how to do this? And here comes the this. I want a sensor facing my front door, and when it goes off, I would like it to flash one of my Hue lights, preferably in another color. This would just be a visual notification, almost instead of a doorbell. Matthew, is there a way to do this with the Hue app or with Siri shortcuts?
Not with the Hue app. Actually, I think I might need to revisit this again with the part from Pushcut that I was noticing this morning. There might be a clever way to do it, but I don't think the motion sensor. Yeah, it's hard to tell. The way that you would do this with shortcuts and or the home automation, I mean, it would definitely not be through shortcuts itself. The home automations converted into a shortcut using that get contents of URL thing could make a request to if this then that, and then if this then that's Hue integration has a flash your light system. So that seems like the most straightforward way to do it. And I haven't done it too much with a variety of products, but it seems like the if this then that calls are pretty fast. I have a Logitech Pop one that turns off my bedroom lights because that's like I get in bed, reach over and just pop the bedside table and then all the lights turn off, which is nice. And that uses if this and that does go pretty quick. So this seems like a pretty solid option. Another way that I just want to mention this because I just found the app earlier this summer. This wouldn't be an automation in that way, but if you do want to use shortcuts to flash your Hue lights, there's an app called Signals for HomeKit that basically uses that same type of thing where it'll just turn the light on and off real quick. Yeah, which has not been easy to do otherwise. You would think... I love smart tech that's not really that smart, and it's been around for years and years. It's like, this should be a pretty simple thing. But, I mean, Hue does, when you're adding a light, it can flash it to, like, let you know that that's the one that you're working on, but they don't have it as a function. So I will find a link to that and put it in the show notes as well, the Signals app.
Yeah, that's exciting because I didn't know about that. Yeah, I did the IFTTT thing this morning to test it, and it works. Nice. So, yeah, you can set that up. There's an actual Hue setting for basically doing an alert. So it's clear that Hue is thinking about it, like thinking that people would want to do that, but they don't see it as something that everybody who buys Hue lights would want to do. So they don't include it in the actual thing.
You could also,
Brian,
just real quick, you might want to use a contact sensor instead of a motion sensor. You might want to put it on the door itself and have that trigger. I mean, just because a motion sensor pointed at it still could do the same thing. I guess it depends if you already have the products, but pointing something at the door as opposing it to just being part of whether the door is open or not seems like one step away that you could just have it directly on the door.
Yeah. Brian writes in, I have an issue with HomeKit. It doesn't work away from the house. I use an Apple TV as a hub, but it always stands as standby. Then I tried to add an iPad as a hub. Then it stands as standby, and now the Apple TV is active, but it still doesn't work. When I look at the iPhone, it looks like it reconnects to the hub constantly when both devices are set up as a hub. I have removed the Apple TV from HomeKit and run with the iPad alone, and it stands as standby. It was an issue in iOS 13, but it is also an issue in iOS 14. Brian, you're not alone. This is unfortunately a problem that a lot of people experienced in the transition from the before times when Apple did not require two-factor authentication as an Apple ID standard to now where Apple does require two-factor authentication as an Apple ID standard. And when that happened, a lot of folks who at one time were able to do a lot of the smart home stuff, they no longer were able to. So what you need to do is start, unfortunately, by toggling off the sorry, I wanted to unlock the iPad here. on the devices that you have that are currently being used as hubs, you need to toggle off the setting that says use this as a home hub. When they're both off, then you need to reset the devices and turn them both back on again. For the Apple TV, instead of toggling off use as a home hub, you'll actually have to log out of your Apple ID on the device and then log in again. Yeah, it's annoying, and it is troublesome, and it is frustrating, but at some point things got out of sync and it needs to be kicked back into sync, and that is the step that it requires to kind of get things back in sync. But yeah, make sure, first of all, that you do have two-factor authentication enabled on your Apple ID. By this time, I don't even know if you can have an Apple ID and not have 2FA turned on, but maybe it's possible. But you need to have that turned on for sure. And then from there, do the log out, log in stuff to try and get it to actually work as a hub. And if that doesn't work, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say they don't have to reset the entire home, right? Or
shouldn't have to reset the entire home.
Resort.
Yeah, that's the final last call. Nothing else is working, but I'm afraid that you would end up doing that and it still wouldn't work. And so you would have just wasted all that time. You need to make sure that all of the devices are connected to the same Wi-Fi network. If you've got multiple Wi-Fi networks in your home or anything like that, a guest network and a main network, what ends up happening is when you log into a guest network on one of your devices, your device is going to save that network to your Apple ID and sync that information to the cloud and make it possible for other devices to access that Wi-Fi network quickly. And so what ends up happening sometimes is that your phone, when it unlocks from sleep, pops open, looks around for the Wi-Fi network, and ends up connecting to a guest network because it spots that first instead of your actual Wi-Fi network. One of the things that you can do is launch the Settings app, tap on Wi-Fi, choose... I tapped on Bluetooth. I was like, where is it? Tap on Wi-Fi, tap the little icon for information that is going to be to the right of the Wi-Fi SSID. And then where it says auto join, make sure that that is toggled off for any of the networks that you don't want your device to automatically connect to, but instead you want to be able to manually go in and connect to those. That way it won't spot a guest network first and then spot and then, connect to that instead of the actual one. So that is an important step as well. Once everything is on the same Wi-Fi network, then that could be, if that's the issue, that should solve it. The last thing is that location plays a very strange role in HomeKit. And I say strange, it's because it's perplexing and hard to understand how exactly HomeKit location works. And I've tried, and it's just very difficult. So you want to go into launch the Settings app, go to Privacy, choose Location Services, and make sure that when you choose Home, that on your iPad and on other devices, you've got while using the app selected instead of never or ask next time. That way it can sort of keep track of whether you're in the home or out of the home, and that should help with the automations. And one last troubleshooting step, Brian, which is to launch the Contacts app, tap on your name. Your card is usually it is the one at the top, and choose Edit, and under the addresses section, make sure that you have the HomeKit Home listed in the addresses section with the label Home next to it. And then you can also put in other ones if you want to as well. Like I've got my work address, but Home is the one that needs to be in there. And that also plays a role in determining your location and being used when it comes to automations. So I know that was a lot, Brian. It was kind of at the last, I had those original troubleshooting steps, and then I thought of some more right there as we were going along. So, feel free to rewind, slow down, anything that you need to try those different troubleshooting steps. But yeah, resetting home is going to be your last call after everything else doesn't work. I would start with the location stuff first and foremost, then go to the logging out of different things. Location and Wi-Fi stuff first, then go to the toggling on and off and logging out of different things before you kind of start over everything from the get-go.
Yeah. I hope
all right, Matthew.
Works. That's
me too. It's so miserable. It's trouble. It's troubling how difficult it is. And I've done a lot of troubleshooting with friends for that kind of stuff. These next two are all you.
Proto has a question that stabs me in the heart. What is the best way to resolve shortcuts being out of sync between two Apple devices on the same iCloud account? I've definitely had this editorialization. I'm still having this problem. So on the iPad, this is him again. I tried unticking shortcuts in apps using iCloud, waited a few minutes, turned it on again, but this did not help. I'm afraid to do this on the iPhone since I have tons of NFC tag automations, and those seem to be tied to a specific device. So my joking answer that I put in the document was bang your head against the wall for days on end, because I still haven't gotten mine fixed. 3 days ago, my shortcuts synced out of their folders once more. Thankfully, they kind of stayed in the order that they were in those folders, and I could move them back. But
I bet that gave you a heart attack.
That's what I'm about to finish right now after this, is sorting them in those folders again for like the 7th time this summer, or since this summer. So
wait, so it unsynced and it didn't resync? You just had to...
No, it moved them all out of the folders. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the same. Sorry. That was a recording of me from a few days ago. No, I literally just saw it. Actually, at this point, I just saw it and was just like, oh, like, I guess I'm doing that again. Like, I'll add another 4 hours into my workday of just like, because I just have to do it. And yeah, so that's fun. One of the things that did happen to me in that process, I noticed that it started having conflict errors, and there was some that said from like an earlier beta in June is when the conflict was. So something is like coming back from Apple's side. What helped me was to, I think, resolve those conflicts. Like I had to go through and tap on them and make sure that whatever was the proper shortcut was then in the library. Because then once those issues disappeared from the sync system, like it still was trying to sync stuff that wasn't actually resolved, then it started to actually work. And I also had all of my devices open at the same time to make sure that it was actually going, because that's what kept happening to me, was I would go back to the other device that wasn't yet up to date, and then it would pass that information back to the old device where I had synced things. So the other thing does become toggling on and off in shortcuts settings, not in the iCloud settings. There's just a sync option there, and that would be the way to do it. You might, if it's just the order. Actually, I don't remember if there's you used to be able to just change the order. Here, let me check real quick, because it is part of the default apps now. Oh no, you can't toggle. You used to be able to turn off the order, and I'm sure that just created more issues. So it's just sync or no sync now. But basically, I did that a couple of times on each of those devices, restarted them, and would just move a shortcut and see if it synced. And eventually they kind of ended up, it literally seemed like it would get through an old version, then update and mess up again. But then I would like slowly get back to the point where they were meeting at the same changes. I'd say the NFC tag thing is kind of like, take some screenshots of your NFC tags and be prepared to go back and do it, because I still haven't. I'm still finding NFC tags around my house that I haven't that I had set up that I didn't just remember when I went back through the list. So that's something that I've been dealing with, and I'm literally like, this is what I'm doing after this podcast. So I feel your pain. I would also say iOS 4, if you really don't want to do it, like, because it does take time, wait until the next version of iOS comes out, and then it should be resolved. But also, I'm going to be submitting some more feedback. If this happens again, I might have to send a strongly worded letter to Tim Cook. No, I'm just kidding. more like my old teammates. But it's like, guys,
please stop making me do this over and over again.
I am just like a broken man. I'm just
sorry,
kidding, but it's fine. It's like, I know what my shortcuts are. Trust me, I'm very aware of what I have in my library now. So at least it's like, I can deal with it because it's my job and I have to. Like, it does suck when it's just the thing that you're having fun with and it screws up all your tools. That, like, losing your automations and shortcut stuff, once you rely on those, can get really frustrating, because you just, like, those pathways that you used to have no longer work, and it can be really draining. So I hope this stuff gets resolved, and it's kind of like, stick with it and gotta take screenshots and be willing to resort it, and as long as it can actually stay in sync.
What's the next one?
From Walter. So there's a couple things here. I've been programming computers for 33 years and I can't make sense of shortcuts. I'll say that's on shortcuts. I want a shortcut to play a shuffled playlist when I run it. When I try to make the shortcut, it shuffles one time and then starts playing a song. But when I run the shortcut again, it plays the same series of songs. It never shuffles again. Any idea what I'm doing wrong? Walt. So I will say, to break apart those things, programming for 33 years and not making sense of shortcuts sounds pretty logical to me, because it's pretty confusing. And I think the ways that a programmer almost coming down to shortcuts can get confused, because you expect there's a certain way that programmers do things, that shortcuts is kind of in between that and people who've never programmed before. I'd also say there are just so many edge cases in this, in a tool that was purchased and integrated and not built internally at Apple. So just naturally, or in the nature of shortcuts integrating with every single app on your phone, there's just a billion edge cases. I can't totally tell from the question too. It sounds like he's using the get playlist action and then play music with the shuffle feature turned on. And so it basically takes the playlist and then shuffles it the same way every time. Do you notice this even just with the music app itself? I'm curious if because I have this sometimes where it will tend to shuffle in the same way.
I don't know. I don't think I've noticed that. No. If I tap shuffle and then unshuffle and then shuffle again, it seems to be that it changes that shuffle.
I think it happened with some of my playlists, or like if you hit the shuffle playlist button that they now show next to the play button. But anyways, a way to just guarantee that this doesn't happen is there's an action in shortcuts called, or actually it's filter files is what you would use, which logically doesn't sound like the thing that you're doing because you're not working with files, but it's basically just to filter items, and files are a universal term, so it works with anything. But in there you can shuffle by random, or you can filter randomly, and it will just change the order of the things before you then pass it into the play action and shuffle it there. So that's actually a nice way to kind of mix up the order of things that you would normally just follow, like the direct list. I was going to mention too, just in a similar way, if you do want to randomize things using shortcuts, there's an action called get item from list that basically lets you look at a list and then just pull out one instead of filtering through the list. It's just operate on one of those things, and you can just get a random item. So this wouldn't necessarily work with the playlist type of method, but I use it to basically have Siri pick something for me. It's like, I have 5 chores that I could do today. Get a random item from this list and then show it to me so I don't have to decide. So it's kind of like a way to shuffle information in the same way that you would shuffle a playlist. So just fun stuff there. Serendipity.
We do have some more questions. I think we'll do one more because we are running out of time. Basically, there are some that end up being, sorry, this is just not possible. And normally I don't like to answer those questions, but I had a thought. And the reason I don't like to answer them is because it does kind of feel a bit of a bummer to say, no. But I know that when I go out looking for a thing, or I'm trying to find something and find the answer to something, and I can't find the answer to something, or the answer seems to be no, having someone else confirm that makes it feel more real and makes it feel more sure and certain. So actually, let's just go through these really quick. Angela wrote in, I've got a question about Bluetooth adapters. I have a pair of iPhone wired earpods, the ones with the lightning port at the end, or plug-in at the end, and like to change them to wireless. I know there's adapters for the ones that have the traditional 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, but mine has the lightning end. Do you know of any Bluetooth adapters that will work with these? So I thought about some different ways of doing this, including plugging a lightning adapter into a lightning port into a lightning adapter to headphone jack adapter that you then plugged into a Bluetooth deal. Unfortunately, I did some digging. I cannot find anything that would do that. Craig wrote in, although I can trigger Siri shortcuts with an NFC tag, I haven't found a way to read the data on an NFC tag. I'd like to have a Siri shortcut that reads the data in an NFC and then passes that to an application, or at least to the clipboard. I don't want users to be forced to find and use an NFC app if this could be done with just iOS. Matthew.
Yeah, so this is... I think the direct way he's saying it's not possible, and it's kind of hard to tell sometimes with the, like, what are you trying to do with it? Because just shortcuts right now does just scan the identifier of the NFC tag and then triggers a shortcut that then does something else. He was saying he wants to pass data to an application or to the clipboard. You could have a shortcut that has that data in it, and then when you run it, it takes the copy from the clipboard, or copies it to the clipboard and uses it in that application. But I was kind of like, it sounds like there's multiple NFC tags and he's trying to get different data, because otherwise, why do you need this? It would just be tapping the same one and having something happen. And the way I would approach that is each NFC tag with shortcuts is set up just to have something like a text action in it with that specific data for that NFC tag. And then when you tap it, it passes that into a shortcut that is set up to accept multiple different types of text and then operates off of that. But even further, it does sound like he wants to have somebody who's never set up anything be able to tap an NFC tag and have it trigger a shortcut, which isn't possible. The NFC tags can be used by multiple people, but they do have to go in and set that up. NFC tags can be written with a URL that you can scan with your phone, or that can be read by the phone, and then that URL can be activated and do these types of things. So it could be a URL to run a shortcut, but it would have to open. It just wouldn't work the way that I think he's trying to so seamlessly. It is like if you could have an NFC tag that was a shortcut that somebody could just tap and not have the shortcut installed and have it work, would be cool. But I think in the current iteration, that's like a little weird for iOS and what users would expect. And this way is I installed the shortcut, I installed the NFC tag setup automation. So there's nothing weird happening there. So I don't think the specific way he's trying to do it, but there are other ways to approach these types of problems.
Alrighty. I want to tell you all that this episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by MySudo. Yes, I love MySudo. Everything you do online increases your digital exhaust. Look at all that behind me. All that digital exhaust. It's spreading your personal information across the digital world, like your name, your phone number, your email address, your credit card numbers, your billing, your shipping addresses, browsing activity, and so much more. This highly sensitive information identifies you and your private activities, leaving you vulnerable for spams, for scams, and worse. You want privacy for your daily digital activities, and that's why you need MySudo. With MySudo, you can quickly create different profiles called pseudos. Each one can have a working phone number, email, virtual card, and private browser. You give your pseudo profile a purpose like shopping, selling, or online services. Now, every time you talk, you text, you email, you browse, or pay, you can use your pseudo profile and finally take back control of the information you share. Here's an example. With the MySudo app, you can create a new pseudo profile with a custom phone number and email address. Name your pseudo for what you plan to use it for, such as selling or shopping. And when potential buyers or services ask for your contact info, use your new working pseudo phone number and email address instead of risking the exposure of your personal information. That way you can send, receive calls, texts, emails with contacts from the MySudo app, and calls you receive are clearly designated that they're coming from your selling pseudo, so you can quickly see, that's what that is. Of course, I've got to mention that Leo recommended the MySudo app on iOS Today one time as an app cap, and I immediately downloaded it just from him talking about it. And then later on, they reached out and said, hey, we'd love to support the network. Awesome. We were already using and loving the app. We would love it if you came on. And so it is a fantastic all-in-one privacy solution. There are 3 different subscription plans, and of course, they all have unlimited encrypted communications between MySudo users for messaging, voice, video, and email. And then each subscription plan comes with a working pseudo profile, a phone number, and email address. And depending on the privacy protection you're after, there are the Sudo Go, Sudo Pro, and Sudo Max plans. Whether you've been hacked, tracked, had identity theft, were scammed, spammed, or just want to prevent these from happening, the MySudo app will mitigate the common risks that we all face today. Download the MySudo app today from the App Store or Google Play. Go to mysudo.com/twit to learn more. Take back and control your personal information with the MySudo app and download it today. Thanks so much to MySudo for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. Matthew Cassinelli, what's your pick of the week?
This is a product that is actually announced because there's a lot of Apple things likely going to happen this week. But right in the midst of that, Facebook is now shipping their Oculus Quest 2. And we both talked about it and we both ordered these because I am very intrigued in VR and also wanted to do something outside of my traditional space of Apple type things and HomeKit and all that. I really wanted to play Beat Saber like every day and exercise with it and stuff like that. Like there's people who have like towel racks next to their VR setups because they play Beat Saber and sweat all day long and stuff. And it's super interesting. I will totally admit that like I'm not jazzed about Facebook and their policies around you have to log in with a Facebook browser and things like this. But I think this is an interesting thing that I, particularly going into winter and being at home all the time, and even I'm curious with like ergonomics. I've been really focused on ergonomics and I need to get a monitor and things like that. So it's like something that I can do that I'm not looking down at a screen or just like forward at a screen. Obviously it's on my eyes. So I'm not, maybe that's even worse. But I think it'll be like an interesting, it's like a piece of technology that I've never actually used good VR. Like I have the cheaper Oculus Go, is it?
Same. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't
I
seem
stopped using it so soon after because it just was not, it did not work for me. It just wasn't good. Look, I'm right there with you. The reason that I got this is because I'm not going to lie to myself. I know, well, I am going to lie to myself sometimes because denial is very powerful. But in this, I'm not going to lie to myself. I live a pretty sedentary lifestyle. And I, as a person with ADHD, a lot of types of exercises are so incredibly repetitive that they just like the thought of having to do this thing over and over and over and over and over again sounds so boring. And there's, I think it's called Superhuman, but I can't quite remember. There's a sort of workout service thing that works with Oculus that I was eyeballing, and I have been wanting to try legit VR for a long time. And I was about to order the last edition of the Oculus Quest. But I had it in my cart, it was available for order, and I almost clicked order, and then I canceled it and said, no, I don't want to spend the money on this. And not too long after, Facebook had its event that I didn't even know was happening and announced new hardware. And I went online and pre-ordered it. And I almost canceled. I almost canceled the pre-order. But I said, you know what? I've been thinking about this for so long. I'd like to treat myself, as it were. And also genuinely, like, I am absolutely affected by sunk cost theory and am motivated by sunk cost theory. So I know that because I've spent the money on this, I will be guilted into using it, and therefore
Isn't that the opposite of that? I thought sunk cost was that you've already paid for it, so it shouldn't have any influence on your purchase decisions because it doesn't matter anymore.
Oh,
it's
wait,
gone.
You're right. It's the opposite.
It's the right concept,
cost.
But you're applying it. You're applying it with like a good.
Wait, okay, it's sunk cost fallacy. Sunk cost fallacy. When we continue in action because of our past decisions rather than a rational choice of what will maximize our utility at the present time. Because we order a big meal and have paid for it, we feel a pressure to eat all the food, even though it's not a good idea. Because I ordered this and paid for it, even though I may not want to work out on a given day, because of the sunk cost fallacy, I feel like I have to. Anyway, I am susceptible to that guilt, and so therefore will want to use this. And I'm happy to guilt myself with this, and then also try the most recent version of the Oculus. But yes, I am also right there with you about not being jazzed that Facebook is the company behind it. Alas, they own one of the best VR systems, and so it is what it is.
Let's do the next podcast in VR together.
Boop, boop, boop.
I feel like it would be possible, but I don't know.
Probably, but probably some heavy lifting. All right. My pick of the week is a product from Nomad, and it is the first consumer tech product to introduce free power technology. Let me grab it.
Ooh.
This is This is what AirPower wanted to be. It is a charging pad, a wireless charging pad that lets you throw down your phone anywhere across this surface, and it will charge that device. It can go anywhere on this surface, and it will charge that device. It can charge up to 3 devices at once that do Qi charging. So that means AirPods Pro case, Google Pixel, iPhone, more recent versions of the iPhone, and anything else that does wireless charging with the Qi standard. So not the Apple Watch, unfortunately, but everything else. And you can see on the front, it's got 3 LEDs. These LEDs will light up when one of the charging spaces is taken. So last night, I threw my iPhone down like this. Well, not like that.
Gosh.
I threw my iPhone down like this and then dropped my AirPods case sort of over here in this area, and it was charging both of them just fine, no problem, super dandy. And it works. So inside, I wonder, Burke, if you can go to that Base Station Pro page and scroll down until you see there's a part that says developed from the ground up, and it's right past that video, and there it is. And then drag that slider to the left there so that we can see those panels underneath that leather pad. Yeah, so on the right side there, you can see those different hexagonal panels. Those panels are the different charging cells, and the free power technology, basically it has all these little chips in it that are looking for device placement and will turn on or off some of these charging pads, charging zones based on where the device is placed. And it also has what's it called? I can't think of the exact name for it, but basically if you throw down something metal that is not a wireless charging thing, then it will stop charging. It will, cease so that you don't have any electrical fires. What I also found kind of interesting is that when you first get this, you go to the Free Power website, and there is a firmware updater for Free Power technology.
Yeah.
So you download that on your Mac or your PC, and it's an app, and then you can plug in the Free Power charger. This is Nomad's Base Station Pro. You plug this bad boy in, and then it will check if it's running the most recent version of the firmware, and then can update based on that. So it continues to update. The last update was on September 21st, and it just was trying to improve upon charging performance for multiple devices, and then also Samsung and Google device charging improvements. So this does what it says on the tin. It doesn't overheat. It actually lets you put stuff down however you want to, and actually charges them. And I'm just all around incredibly impressed with it. And we will see what other technology can compete with it.
Does it make noise?
I am not a good judge of that. I'm not a good judge of that because people say things make whirring, swirling noises, and I never hear it, or I usually don't hear it. I have not noticed any noise with this, but don't let me be the judge of that part, because some people can hear some ridiculous coil whine.
I mean, specifically charging stuff, and I've had a couple things, or Qi chargers specifically, is because this is a computer. Like it is I mean, you haven't said the price yet, but you're paying for a full computer to figure out this charging stuff. And so those usually are running and things like that. And I have a couple smart chargers that make a high pitched whirring noise. And it's like, that is unacceptable. If this is going to be next to my head while I'm sleeping, like that's the thing that I'm concerned about, is if you can just hear it while you're in bed, it doesn't really match up for me. But even still, the technology is like, this is super interesting.
Very cool. I feel it's very cool. Yeah, it's $230. Yikes. I realize that's a big price, which is why last week I had the less expensive thing. I know that it's a very expensive price, but this is literally, the cusp technology that's in this. There are no other consumer electronic devices on the market currently yet that offer this free power technology. And in fact, I think the next types of consumer-facing tech that's going to have this will be cars. So it's not available in a lot of places. This is brand spanking new, and Nomad was the first company to work with the free power standard and offer this stuff. So really neat, but certainly, not for everybody. But I think it's very cool. All righty, folks. Wow, we have had quite the episode. And look, even if you didn't get your question answered this time, that doesn't mean you never will. That doesn't mean you never will. Yeah. If you email us, stt@twit.tv, audio, video, text, whatever you want, send it our way. We'd be happy to answer your questions. Of course, you can tune in live to the show by heading to twit.tv/live. We record it every Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific. But the best way to watch and get the show is to subscribe at twit.tv/STT. Because when you do that, you'll go there and you'll see links to subscribe to the show in both audio and video formats. So you can click on that and you can get us in whatever format you want, be it Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you are, we will be there and you will get the episode as soon as it's available, which is beautiful, wonderful, grateful. Matthew Cassinelli, if folks want to follow you online and check out your great work, where do they go to do that?
They should go to youtube.com/Matthew Cassinelli because I will be having a video out soon. What about you?
I am at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to all of the different places I exist online. Folks, once again, a reminder, twit.tv/STT to subscribe to the show. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next time. And now it is time to say good afternoon to your smart assistants.
Good morrow.
It's never not weird.
Hi, I'm Jason Howell, host of All About Android. Each week I'm joined by my co-hosts Ron Richards and Florence Ion, as well as a whole rotating cast of guests, journalists in the Android space, experts, developers, and even people working on Android behind the scenes at Google. We talk about everything that has to do with Android, and you don't want to miss a single episode so you know what's going on behind the scenes. That's twit.tv/AAA. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode.